I'm Francesca. I'll be instructing you guys today. Just some background on me so you know who's guiding you through everything. I started painting with canvas in 2012. So I've been teaching classes since then. COVID really kind of like halted all of that. I remember the last class, it was such an eerie time because everyone kind of knew that like it was going on, but what, no one knew really what to do with it. And the next day they were like, oh, we're shutting everything down. And but yeah, so it's been interesting because I just kind of, obviously couldn't teach classes. So I've just gotten to draw, practice, study. So I've been doing all of that this whole year, which has really made these Paint Your Pets go a little bit better too. So I'm excited to share with you guys, and especially my love of art. I'm a big believer that we can all get benefits of art. It doesn't matter if it's like what you want to do for your career, if it's what just you want to do to have a happy place. Because I really feel like painting is that. It really just can turn any bad day into the best one. And it really kind of helps you escape, really. It's like you're in your own little world, you're painting. It's like this like window of like another place. So yeah, but we're going to go, even though you guys both have different animals and I'm going to be doing this one right here, we're still going to stick together as far as a process. With you guys, it'll be kind of easy with you because your colors are kind of similar since they're both black and white. And so you guys can kind of play around also with your colors. So you guys have your sheets with all of the information I gave you, right? Or the photos?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I want you to have those out as much as possible. Just have it like, if you guys see here, I'm actually going to spotlight both of these. Okay. So can you see both me and my canvas?
Yep.
Cool. So on your reference, I gave you guys a couple things. So one is just like a digital rendering of it that I did. So you kind of have an outline of your dog and that in cat. And then there's the original that you'd sent me. And then I also give you guys like a filtered version, which is kind of like this. So I would really recommend using this one that is a little bit more filtered for what you're doing, because when we're trying to use our photo for the pet, you get really hyper focused on all the details. And with painting, and especially portraiture with dog portraits, anything, you want to simplify. Even though we see things in person, when you see your animals, you see every little bit that's on there, but it doesn't translate quite as well onto the canvas if we try to throw a bunch of information on there. So if you look at the reference, you see how they're kind of broken up in little boxes and abstract shapes. So you'll be kind of really using that as your map. You can kind of think about it like paint by numbers, but just think of it as those like building of it, because it's kind of like a way that it sculpts the animal. I'm going to share this really quick.
Yeah, that one.
So if we look at this, do you see how we have it going all the way from dark to light? Yeah, but it's a great way to visualize. So if you look at your reference of your pet, you see all those different shapes and everything, especially since both of your animals are kind of patterned, but black and white, all black. We still want to have dimension. We don't want to just do it all black, because then it's just a black box or a black shape. So by adding all these extra colors onto there, that's really going to help. So our darkest colors are going to be reserved for either the shadows or of course just the darker fur. Anything lighter is going to be your highlights. And we're going to basically work from like our darkest colors and build from there. Especially think about like when you get your hair done, maybe for the first time, you just have, mostly for women that dye their hair, but you're putting stuff on top of it, but you still have that natural hair underneath that color. So we're going to be doing the same thing where we're just going to kind of give them a whole, one color for the most part. And then we're going to kind of layer on top of it. And you're kind of like building and sculpting almost the animal. Okay. And as you go along, it really, kind of makes sense and flows really well. But yeah, so kind of think about that though. Like when you add on highlights to your hair, it's usually just in little spots and they're like fun parts. Also where the light's hitting. So if I think, for both of yours, I think the light, if I remember correctly, was mostly coming from the right side. So just kind of choose one side, but that's just going to help kind of create that form and everything. And then I'm going to be pulling up your references as we go along, because we're actually going to start with our background first, just to give you guys kind of a feel with the brushes. And also, we want to make sure that our background also has that same color within our animals because it all kind of helps it keep it harmonious. So we'll start off with that and then we'll work on that pet. But I'm going to be able to pull up the pets, pull it up on the screen so we can kind of go over some stuff individually as well. But let's go over the tools that we have because that's kind of important. So we have, you guys have your brushes. So we're going to be using this larger brush that has like the square on top of it. And it's kind of like, not rough, but it's has that a little rougher than maybe like a synthetic.
Yeah.
Okay. So we also have our paint water cup. You guys poured some paint water, right? Yeah. Cool. Sweet. Solo cups work perfect.
Yeah.
So the paint water is your best friend. When you paint, initially it's like you think of just the paint. The paint's what's going to make everything so great. The water breaks everything down. It brings out all the colors. It keeps things from looking really flat. And like I was saying before, the less flat, the more dimensional and realistic it'll look. And especially at first, we're going to kind of like go around and really give ourselves more of a transparent sort of layer. But yeah, so the water is going to be your best friend. You might need to change it once or twice throughout it, but it really typically doesn't make a big difference. We should be fine with the colors that we're using. But then we'll use those other brushes as we go along further. But our paint is water-based. It's acrylic, so that's why that paint water is so important. As you go along, again, not to reiterate too much, but use the water often. And when you go to grab it though, don't just like dunk it all the way in like you dunk a cookie into a glass of milk. You just kind of want to like pretend like it's a bug and it just lands on top of a little pond or something. For the most part, there's always exceptions, but if you ever need a little bit more water, just get a little tiny bit and you can use a paper towel to kind of tap it out, but you just don't want to get too much or it'll just drip all the way down. If that happens, just grab a paper towel, you'll be good to go. But and your fingers might get a little bit dirty with paint, but it all washes off with soap and water. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started when she sits back down. If you guys need to grab a drink or anything, you can do that.
All right, I got my paint water here.
Oh my gosh. For drinking.
All right, so with our backgrounds, the dog one, I thought that blue was a really pretty color to use. You guys could obviously swap them. And the cat, I kind of thought you could, actually let me pull that one up again. You can do a lot with that one. I always think it looks cool with the green in the background because of the eyes. It pulls it in so crazy, but the pink would be cute too, that magenta. So I gave you a bunch of that. And all of that paint, you should probably, as you're pouring it, don't pour like the whole amount, get little bit by little bit, because you actually should have enough for it even after this class. But yeah, so don't pour it all out at once. But so just kind of maybe think for a minute which color you want to do your backgrounds, if you need any help. But I did think that pink and the blue would pair well together, like if they're hanging up next to each other. And it doesn't need to be that pink. It doesn't need to be that blue. We have things that we can mix to it to make it lighter, which I'll definitely do as well. Doesn't need to be that color right out of the tube.
I like the green actually for this one.
Yeah.
With their eyes, yeah.
But
But I think the blue one here is
I like the blue on his. Dog.
Yeah.
Cool. So blue and green.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's go ahead and pour out some colors. So since it's acrylic, it does dry a lot quicker. So I don't always like to put everything out at once, but I am going to just let's put out our background colors. So I'm going to do a greenish color and I'll just get not too much, but maybe about scraper. Just about like that to start. So it's not too much. You actually need so much less than you'd think. And again, it's nice to always have more to work with.
Yeah.
And then what I'll do, and then maybe get some white if you're gonna want to lighten it up. I definitely am. I don't typically like to use colors like straight out of the tube. It's always nice to do something to it.
So that blue.
Should I lighten it at all?
And then I'll show you how to load up your brush and all of that in just a sec.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, you let me know.
I like it a little bit.
Maybe since, yeah, it's very so dark.
Mine actually probably need to darken actually. right.
All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab that flat square brush that I gave you and get the brush wet. Let's just dunk the brush in all the way at first so the whole brush is all the way wet. You can squeeze that extra water out with your fingers over your cup just so it's not dripping.
Yeah.
But we do want the brush wet. And then I'm going to start to grab some colors. So the best way to load your brush, instead of just like dipping it in the center of your paint, kind of always use it from the side because it just stays a little more organized that way. And if you notice, see how I'm sliding back and forth on each side of my brush? Really load up the paint in there. And then I'll kind of steal a little bit of the white from the side like that as well, kind of back and forth. And I'm not mixing it perfectly because it'll mix pretty well on the canvas with that acrylic. But now I have my brush and it's pretty loaded up.
So I guess it would be good to know. So if I need to take color out of the brush, would I just kind of go and?
Yeah, so if you say you want to freshen up the brush, just kind of wipe the excess off with your paper towel. And then you just go to your brush, stir it at the bottom of the cup because it'll actually clean inside of the bristles like you're mixing up a big stew or something.
Okay.
And then, yeah, then you'll have a fresh brush. Good question. Okay, so what I'm going to do is start up like at the very top. And I always like to kind of work it almost like I'm reading a book just to have a system. Since the paint kind of dries faster, I want to make sure that I'm kind of working as I go. Also, I want to actually make sure I'm like pressing on the canvas. Do you see that? I'm not just kind of lightly. I'm actually going to just fill it in. And then as you go, you can kind of, I like to add little bits of like white, maybe towards like this side, the side that I know that's going to have more of the light. And your reference should kind of show that because it is pulling from like the photo reference. And you can actually kind of, as long as you're like holding the, well, they're on your, the table, I guess, but you can really kind of scrub it in just to get that paint around because we can do a second coat later too. And then as I go up to the pup, I'm going, or the cat, I'm going like right up against it. It shouldn't bleed or anything. I did add a fixative on top of the marker that I added for you guys. But just go right up to it and it can touch the line, but it should be fine. We're going to be painting over all of that anyway, but we want to make sure we still see the lines. And then after I've like covered the whole thing, I'll leave it because we can go back and add another coat, but I want to let it dry before I do that. And careful though, going back to any dried areas, because it tends to like, if the paint's already dry and then you try to like scrub in any sort of wet paint or the wet brush, it'll actually kind of peel it off. So even though I'm kind of doing that right now, I'm going to stop myself. But yeah, that second coat will look really nice. Also, it's kind of nice when it's a little more of a transparent looking background, because when you add the pet, it makes it pop, because anything more transparent kind of looks like it's further behind, and anything that's opaque and just not transparent is pushes it forward. So
Yeah.
kind of like to leave it transparent back there. Cool. Okay. So wait, let me see your painting. I just want to see the colors and all that.
A little wet still.
Okay.
Interesting
Wow, look.
layer. But I did a
Wow.
good decision and took off the foot.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's cool. And you did a good job outlining that pup. Wow, you can like see all the hair and all that.
Yeah.
Good job.
It took me so long.
Good job. All right, so now you're a little more probably comfortable with that brush and all of that, so that's always nice.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to add in, again, we're going to kind of do it in layers. So I don't know if you're familiar with like Photoshop or anything, but kind of the same thing where we're going to have layers on top of each other, or like transparency papers. I think that's the best way to kind of think about it. Or again, we're like highlighting and sculpting and adding. But
Right.
I'm going to add in kind of a base color. So whatever I just want to like, it's not going to all be there in the end. A lot of it will be covered up. But, and I'd suggest for you guys, do something that's black, but not your blackest black.
Okay.
I actually emailed you that value scale. That might be kind of a good way to just visualize, like, because when you have your darkest color and you're black, you can't really go any darker than that. And also it's a little harder to go lighter. So let's get so with mine, I'm going to do this pink color. So it's not necessarily realistic, but I did kind of like mix some stuff. So you can do a black with one of your background colors. So make sure that you're definitely adding your background color into the base layer of the fur, and try to use your background color as anything around it's going to reflect onto it. So if you add colors that are onto your pet, it's going to make it look harmonious as if it's in that room. So just to kind of visualize. And then when I add it, oh, and all of those little things in there, those are stickers. I couldn't tell if they actually looked like they were or not. So,
Oh,
just so you know.
hey, thank you.
Yeah. It's so fun putting those little boxes together. So I'm going to go ahead and with my plate, I'm really kind of like, even though I, loaded up my color and all that, I'm actually trying to like wipe a little bit of it off, because I don't want it to be with the background. We really want to load it on, but I want to keep it pretty transparent, especially if you're going to go over any lines, then you don't want it too dark, or not, I shouldn't say dark, too opaque. So the water helps make it more transparent, but I don't want a whole lot on there. And then even just to test, you can use a paper towel to kind of like tap it out. And then I'm going to just kind of like, see how transparent that looks. It's not, even when I go over that line, it's not showing over it. So if you, test it out. If you put a piece on there and you're like, oh, that's way too thick, you can wipe it off. Also, if you look, I'm really scrubbing on there. Go up to the lines and all of that, but you don't need to go over them necessarily. But it should slide right over it, but just kind of, test it out first. And even though I'm not going to have a pink dog later, this is just going to give me more depth, more aliveness as I add in my other layers. And as I'm stirring around, I'm adding some water too, because it thins it out as well and makes it transparent and pretty. And again, anytime throughout, if you put anything down you don't like before it dries, because again, acrylic dries pretty fast, just grab a paper towel, wipe it off. You don't need to have a bunch of commitment. And one thing, as you're going, maybe start to practice this, since this is our underpainting. By the way, this is technically what that term is, an underpainting. But practice the brush strokes, because if you look like right here on, this is where his neck is, I'm going to make sure that I'm kind of like filling in as if I'm sculpting him or if I'm maybe petting him. But like, do your brush strokes in the direction that you would imagine the animal being.
I like that.
That makes sense. By the way, if anything doesn't make sense, let me know and I can explain it differently. I like analogies.
Kind of like how the fur would naturally lay.
Yeah, there you go. Naturally laid. Perfect. Yeah, and like lift the brush as you're kind of adding it on after you've like already kind of scrubbed it in maybe, but like have some loose brush strokes. Nothing too tight, especially in the beginning. The looser you are in the beginning, and if you like look at mine right now, actually he looks really cool with these two colors, but it's just lay down there. You know what I mean? I just want him filled in with being able to see through my brush strokes still a little bit. And you don't forget as well, if you're wanting to, but take progress pictures, because it's really cool seeing later how you like did the whole thing. Sometimes I forget. I have to remind myself.
No.
And then once you get the pet all the way filled in, go ahead and wash your brush off. Again, just kind of press at the bottom of your cup and stir it around to get the bristles clean. And I even like to kind of like just bounce it up and down too, to really kind of get it all cleaned out, because that paint kind of likes to stay. And the cleaner, the better. It's all. So, and after we fill all of that in, we're going to keep kind of building off of it. So we're going to start to add other colors. We want to save, like I said, we didn't want to do our blackest black, but we're going to save our blackest black for the very end. And again, it's kind of same with the whitest white. But as you go, just kind of think about, you want to keep kind of lightening everything up. So you can find patches, and as you're doing it, think about, you know, parts of the face, of their face or their body that would be kind of maybe further out, that's going to hit more light. So kind of think about that as you go along. That'll help form the painting well. And again, look at the filtered version I gave you, because that really kind of helps like map things and build those shapes. And try to replicate the shapes ish. That doesn't have to be exact, but finding interesting shapes kind of is what makes a beautiful painting. So try to, we're just kind of tiling the animal together as well, but find those big shapes too. Nothing too tiny. The bigger in the beginning, the better. And then you can add on the smaller ones. So for example, like I'll probably start with my bigger shapes, like on him. his forehead right here has a big shape. Same with the side of his body. So start with your biggest shapes and then have fun with the smaller ones at the end, because the smaller ones are the highlights. That's kind of like the cherry on the top of your sundae. It's a nice little treat. And you can kind of go back and forth between different brushes. Your brush is kind of like a stamp. So as you go along, just kind of keep that in mind. Like you can use that full part of the brush. You can use, especially the flat one, has a nice sharp edge to it. So if you want to make any like lines or anything like that, that's perfect for it. The brush that we were using in the beginning, I would keep using that because it really kind of gives a nice sort of fur look. A few more things to also keep in mind is that the harder you press on your canvas, you know, the bolder of a mark that you're going to make. So, you know, have a little bit of both too. Don't have everything the same. You want to have variations. Yeah, so I'm going to start doing a darker color. And Andrew, I gave you a little bit, there's a little bit of yellow, and I think in too little of the pods.
Yeah.
I thought that would be cute with the dog's mouth. So, and then you can kind of, well, because in the picture I noticed it. Yeah. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's on him, but in the picture it was a cute, if you look at it, it felt like it kind of differentiated a little bit. So those pops of yellow might be cool too in the white parts of the fur. But you don't feel like you have to use those colors. I just wanted to add that in there because it just kind of made me think.
I like that.
Yeah.
So now I'm doing just a darker kind of pink in these darker areas. And I'm constantly looking at my reference. Don't feel like you're cheating because you're looking at your reference. It's like, I think that's a really common misconception, but I mean, yeah, if you're not looking at your reference, you get lost. It's like driving without a map and not knowing where you're going.
Yeah.
Who knows where you'll end up.
Oh,
especially when you're learning. Like I always use a reference, and then later on everything becomes intuitive. So
yeah,
but yeah, use your tools. Just this.
Right back. I need to get the laptop charger.
I'm all charged up. I know it really takes a lot of battery.
yeah, it does.
So the area that you guys are in, I mean, I'm there all the time dropping kits off. It's crazy. I feel like that's always where I'm at. So pretty. I'm in Tempe, but I used to live out on Power and Germain like years and years ago. Oh. It's so pretty out there, like so much more developed, and I love it.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah. And as I'm doing some of these dark areas, if you look at the screen, I'm even kind of going along where my outline is, my darkest areas, because that's what I want to kind of pop. Because as I get lighter, I'm not going to want to go to these darker areas. So go to wherever, I mean, and it's a little harder because you guys have such dark animals, but you know, just use it to your advantage though. It seems it's like a lot, but just keep filling in. And as you get a little bit further along, you'll start to see all the areas that you can like lighten up and have little pretty nuances.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a thing that I recommend too is like having, if you're working with two colors next to each other to blend or to work together, have them both in your hand. So if you want to like add something on, like a darker spot right here, and then kind of like blend something together.
Oh, nice.
Wet paint needs to blend with wet paint. So then you can like add some wet paint over here, say, because again, it dries fast. So if you go back to an area that's already dry and you're trying to blend something with it, it won't. So you just have to like add some more paint onto it so it has something to work and play with. And for a while, like definitely mine right now, it goes through like some weird stages. So if it's starting to look weird, it's just because you're putting a bunch on and you're, but every painting goes through like a weird sort of phase. So.
What am I doing?
And then you guys can, if you want, email, or Sarah, I emailed you my phone number. You can send me like pictures and I can give you guys any feedback you need.
Oh, cool.
Especially if you feel like maybe you're losing the drawing, because that can happen for sure.
Yeah.
But I can help you get back to it. But also like really use the reference. I know that's what I'm doing, even though my block in is all gone. And if you look right at mine, it looks like a weird blob. But like it's because I have it. I'm gonna start now adding my lighter colors.
Okay.
So that's when it starts to really form, is when you add your lighter colors and then the darks. But
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do lighter colors.
yeah, because you can also still kind of go back a little bit, but the once you feel like it's turning into its own little blob, you should start lightening it up. And again, just think of like shapes whenever you're trying to, fill something in or anything. Think about what's an interesting shape that you can make, and those filtered images can help. So, and also, think about like the plane and the planes of the dog, like what it's hitting, and that in itself is like a little shape. And in some areas when I'm going over the dark, I'm kind of adding it very lightly. So it almost goes over like a glaze versus just adding another color. So really kind of like play around with how much pressure you're applying. Because you'll find pretty quick like how that paint works and what you like about how it works.
Yeah. think we're looking pretty good so far. Some highlights.
And make sure you wash your brushes off. Like if you haven't at all, I would definitely do that because the more you add to it, the more it just kind of becomes muddy because you just have all these different colors in there. Especially if you're trying to lighten up. You're trying to add lighter colors. If it's wet underneath, it's not going to lighten. So maybe fan your canvas. It dries pretty quick, but sometimes you need to speed up that process a little bit. And I wouldn't add just stark white. Add a tiny bit of a color so it has dimension, because if it's just white, it's just flat and you can't really tell what it is.
Not too dark in those white patches. It's okay. Good boy. Should put him in that, do you think? Just kind of show him that. Not a big deal. for bed. I didn't get you, did I? Nothing.
And if you guys just want to look really quick.
Yeah.
So I kept adding my, darks and a variation of the darks, but now I'm like, okay, I need to like start bringing it to life. So I'm using my lighter version, and I did make it. So if you need help like coming up with your highlight color, you can let me know, but I did make sure that I added I toned it. Again, I don't really like to use anything that's like straight out of the tube, but I used that yellow that I actually gave you guys in those smaller ones, and then some white and just a tad bit of my background color, but the smallest amount so it doesn't make too much of a difference. But when I'm adding the highlights, I'm really keeping notice of where those highlights are on the reference. So like even like this right, let me move this over so you can see. So like if you can see all this light right here,
Yeah.
I'm making sure that I'm adding it over there. And if there's a spot that I need to like skip, like where his little hind leg is, I'm not going to fill that all the way in. I still want to have that like shape.
Okay.
And if you look too, do you see how I'm like, again, like tiling? So I don't feel like you have to like brush a huge shape. Like you can still kind of like keep
Okay.
your brush strokes fairly abstract to create that shadow or that shape, whether it be the highlight or whatever. But yeah, so I'm making sure that I'm kind of like going on these sides. And then I do notice it kind of wraps around him a little bit on this side, but I want to keep it heavier on the one side that has all that light.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just kind of like keep notice of that, and taking pictures of your painting, not just to see the progress later, but you can see what's wrong with it. So like even I'm watching my Zoom thing, I can see on the screen my painting right here. So I can kind of tell what's wrong with it or what I want to work on. So take pictures of it and you'll be like, oh, I need light over here, or I need to change this part, but it's a really good tool.
Okay. Yeah, that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
And things tend to grow. So like I definitely added something that like where I feel like his eye might be a little bit off now. So you can, when we do our last little part, we'll add more of the background. So like I'll cut in and add that background over him to
Okay.
that. So just kind of like, and again, it's just kind of seeing the shapes, but so if you notice any of that, not all is lost, you can still adjust it. So the good thing about painting is, I mean, it's hard to really mess up. You can fix anything. And any beautiful, amazing painting that you've seen that looks so, it's like, it's all gone through its weird phases and probably the artist wanting to throw it away. And like, so you're just experiencing the flow of it now. So.
I just wish I could Control Z, sometimes.
What's
Undo.
that?
I wish I could just Control Z sometimes, undo.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, what's funny is I use my iPad a lot for drawing, and if I go through a phase of days where I'm using it, I'll be on my canvas or my painting and I'll tap it, because if you double tap with 2 fingers, it undoes. And I'll do that to my reference or my painting. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's just
Like,
such
right.
muscle memory.
It's not working.
So Andrew, what field do you work in?
I do web design and development.
Right on, very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of creativity in that.
Yeah, definitely. We're super busy right now too, because COVID, everything's pretty much online now.
Mm-hmm. Pretty insane.
Yeah.
I like it. Then so far, everyone's like saying that they like the Zoom classes better than in person, and I'm like,
Interesting.
Because they can just do it from home. Just
yeah, and I appreciate that. I think it's cool, and being able to like do it here is nice too, because there's so much more to share and to show than just at like.
Yeah. You have like all your stuff there, all your supplies.
Yeah. It's been a lot of goods come from it, even though it's been a nightmare.
Yeah. I think one big thing too is just, a lot of companies didn't want to let you work from home. It's like, oh, it would never work.
Yeah.
But now they've kind of been forced to, and they're like, oh, it does work. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me
Less
work from home.
cars. Yeah. Well, people are probably happier. I mean, I know I like working from home and,
Yeah.
and not having to drive places. Like car accidents have to be down and like,
Yeah,
so that alone, I didn't even think about that before, but
Yeah.
true.
so. But yeah, a lot of people I know, they're like, yeah, my company's like, we're not going back to
Yeah.
in office, which good, because then also companies don't have to pay all that overhead for
Right?
Yeah.
buildings and
Then it goes to the employees, right?
yeah, hopefully. Right, yeah, I don't think so.
Nope.
And don't forget that water if you're trying to like spread any paint around, because you could just go mad in one place and then you just get a little touch of water. Gotta hydrate your paint. It dries it's pretty quick drying, which is definitely a benefit, but gotta work with it.
All right, I'm going to email you a picture of what I have so far.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah, I think where I messed up is I didn't put enough water, and so it's a little splotchy. Like there's still like white bits showing through.
So the white bits are definitely the canvas, which means that it's a little dry.
Yeah.
So you should still be able to go over that just a little tiny bit.
Yeah, maybe I'll see if I can clean this out and maybe use a bit of water.
Okay, I just got it. I'll pull it up. Oh, okay, looking cute. You definitely kept within everything, so that's great. So now what I'd suggest is starting to add more of that fur to really kind of like make it pop out and have some actual form. And then what I'd also suggest is, so the eyes.
Yes.
So look at your reference. And actually, hold on. I'm going to pull up. I'm going to do like a side by side for you so I can show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so
yeah,
pull this up. So here's them side by side. So this the scales. I mean, this is, I have this a little bit bigger, but it's just a little more side by side. Okay, so what I'd suggest is, you see how all of this right here, it's just so dark.
Yeah.
So I want you to just like paint what you see. So go over here and I want you to paint all this black, even though it's like, it might seem scary, but you're not really losing a lot of information that you can add on top, because then on top over here, you can add, see how we have all of this black.
Okay.
And then you can go on that perimeter using your flat brush, that really thin flat brush that we did not use in the first part. Then you can add all of these cool abstract little highlights and everything in more of a gray, and then it even comes here. Same with the little line that has for the eyebrow. And then on this side, we have all of this gray. So then you can add in more of like the color that you have here onto all of here.
Okay.
And that perimeter. So, you know, it looks like he's kind of glowing, but fill all this in black, because that's kind of what's cute about him is he has all that hair. And then what you can do is, because if you look at the photo that you had sent me, there's just these two little dots that are just the reflecting of the eye.
Yeah.
And that'll give it that like cute look. If you, you know, so if you, because it's covered with so much hair, so it's really going to just be in all of that shadow.
Okay.
So yeah, I would just say, here, and I'll email you if that's better so you can see it on a screen maybe too.
That's true.
But try to go off of those little spots. But and you can any of those dots that you're seeing, it's just that canvas. So you'll just have to put some water in. Don't be afraid of that water, even though it seems like it is.
Just go crazy with that black over there.
Yeah, don't be afraid. Go hard on the paint.
Woo. All right.
There you go. Also, the white on the pup might be a little bit more. I did use Photoshop to like edit some of the little kennel out of there. So you might, when I was doing it, I couldn't tell if if you look at my screen, I couldn't tell if this part was white. So you might need to add that in.
Yeah, no.
I couldn't read it well enough. So I just figured
Yeah, that's
your
tough.
job well. But yeah, so, and with that gray, so like we're seeing right here, I'll show you, I'll give you an example of something. So if we took in this one right here. Okay, so we have all this white fur.
Yeah.
But if we were to like actually look at the color, like right here, see how that's like, it's still not, it's not as white as it even seems. So like you want to be white, and you don't have to even go that light. I guess my point just is that, you know, you can add a little bit of color in it, and I would do that background color because it will just really make it seem like it all, you know, plays well together.
Yeah.
So that's the color to it. Cool. And then Andrew, if you want, you can send yours whenever you'd like.
Yeah, I know I have a bit of repairing to do, but yeah, I'll show you what
I
I've
hear
seen.
ya. Since COVID, I've been taking this weekly Zoom class where I'm the student, and it's been so fun. But I feel the same. And she's like, okay, everyone send your work. I'm like, I will fix a few things.
You-
first.
Like, let me fix it first.
Hold on.
Yeah, like, wow, now I feel everyone else from my classes. It all makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, what's the email?
Oh,
Actually, I think I might have it here.
that's true. It's a second. What did you say to do for the eyes again?
Just like black it out. So do you still see my computer?
Yeah.
So like just add the black, even though it seems like it's scary and like you're never going to see anything again. Do it,
Yeah,
and then you'll trust me, it'll make more sense.
I trust
Most
you.
things in shadow, there should be less to like know about. And that's what's so cute about that sort of dog when they have all that fur and everything. But again, if you look at your, oh, actually here, I'll pull it up because maybe it's hard to see. Okay, so right here, see that? It's
Yeah.
all dark, but
That's
there's
true.
just these little itty bitty dots that tell us that there is that there's something there. If you add all this other information, your eye's gonna go, your eye's gonna read it differently than what, all this personality in there.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, can you just tell me the
But I hear you, because it's like weird to think to not to add things that like are there, but
info? Anything with canvas. Got it. Anything with canvas.com. Okay. Email should hit you in a minute or so, hopefully.
I will look out for it.
And yeah, I needed to add more water.
Oh, that's looking cute.
Yeah,
So pull up. What's that?
yeah, I had a lot of issues with like some of the canvas coming through, so I'm trying to go back through with like the black and whatnot.
Yeah, and that's just kind of the more you kind of add on there, it'll help with that too. But let me pull up the next to it. So you have a lot of good dimension, especially with how dark like the back is. I would add in a little bit of the white and gray over here, and I can actually I'll show you a cool way to use your brush to achieve some brush strokes like that. And then over here, I'd add in the green for the eye so it starts to come together.
Okay.
And then you can add in that black. And then all of this right here, I would do like, how in the background on the dog, I just did the kind of the wash of it. So I would do a color for the fur that you're going to want to do, like a mixture of your background and your white. And then you can layer on top of it more of that white. But you can also add in some of the black if you want to just have some of the fur coming. But you did a good job with all, especially your shading and all of this. You could add like a highlight right here, a really subtle one. Same with maybe like on this side. And then maybe turn like right here where that black is, bring the black in. We'll do paint the green eye first so you can add the black on top. But then I would even turn it a little bit, and maybe my drawing, it does go up, but I would turn that, now that I'm looking at it right here, turn it like this.
Oh yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
I
do her eye a little more pointy, like how she has it in the picture, you think?
That's what I mean. Yeah. So I would bring it, like close it in right here. But my marker was just pretty thick and went up, but I would close all of that in so the eye, because that way it looks more menacing.
She was pretty menacing.
Oh, I bet. So cute.
But she was very nice.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so just that, and you can add a little bit more of the highlights and all of that, but you can, I'll show you to the whiskers. That'll be our last little part that I'll show you. But the whiskers will be a really fun way to like make it really kind of make sense and pop.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
In that picture, I do have like a tiny bit of the foot still showing through. Do you think at some point I should do another like layer over that?
Let me look at the. Oh, because you don't want it showing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would just do another layer.
Okay.
And especially so when you're applying the paint right there, make sure you have a good amount of paint on your brush, but kind of just like lay it on there. Don't press too hard, because like the harder you press, the more it like tries to also wipe away.
Okay.
So if you kind of just apply the paint on a little thicker and light pressure, it'll really cover over it. And then if you still see it, just do like another coat.
You drying it?
Yeah.
It's confused. It's like, is your paint fine? I don't understand.
Gotta go off my paint.
Also, you can, especially as you're adding some maybe top layers, you can use your paper towel to like, if you apply a piece, or your finger to kind of blend a spot. You can use a bunch of other tools other than just your paintbrush, but you can totally use your finger to wipe some stuff around. And so now I'm like lightly going into the onto the pup with my background color, just very lightly, just so it kind of like, again, makes sense. If there's not anything from the background, it looks like it's kind of out of place or was just photoshopped in, which we are kind of doing, but we can give it a little bit of an illusion.
Yeah.
And just here and there, you don't want to go crazy with it because it's just supposed to be like light is kind of hitting it here and there. And then after you've added like highlights and such, you can, I'm going in with like a darker color, like my darkest, I'd say. And he doesn't have any like black in him, so I'm not using black, but you guys, obviously, that will probably be a good choice for you.
Mm.
But it kind of like, it really helps it come alive. It brings out all the other colors. Which is going in like, especially the eyes, but like with yours, Sarah, you're going to use more of that little light highlight. And I would use that really tiny detail brush I gave you to add that on there. And you'll just barely add it. And guess what? If you don't like where you added it and it looks bad, or not bad, but just like out of place, whatever, you can add black over it and redo it. Do it until you get it right, because it, you know, it's
True.
easy fix with that black and white. But I know sometimes it's like, oh, well, it's okay right there. Like, but you can kind of play around with it. And there is, when I was looking at it, you can see very, very, very slightly the kind of like the bottom eyelid. And you can add that, but you don't want it to be anywhere, you want it to be almost black. Do you see how it's so subtle?
Yeah.
So you could add that, but you want it to be like, and I sent you that value kind of scale. You can kind of think of it like that. You want it like a, you know, a 7 or an 8. You want it almost black, but just enough to where it's like you can barely see it. So it looks like he has those big furry eyebrows.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Quentin.
Quentin?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
They're little old man.
How old is he?
He's like 4 months.
Oh, he's 4 months?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Oh, he's a baby.
our little baby.
Oh, so when you, some of them, I was like, oh, this must have been when he was a puppy. That's so cute. He still is.
2 weeks ago.
Aw,
Okay, I'm gonna send you another.
cool.
Coming your way.
Okay, as soon as I hear it chime, I'll check it out. Okay.
Preston.
He was, and then I got up and I was saying it.
Okay, just save it out. Pull it up. Oh yeah, okay, looking a lot better. And you haven't done the eye yet, right?
All I did was just whacked it out.
Cool. Okay, so that looks already way here. Let me actually pull them up side by side so you can see. So yeah, look at that difference right there. It definitely has a lot more feeling for it. So then I'd say,
I don't see it yet. All I see is the canvas that you're working on.
let me pull up the, I had it. Oh, here,
Oh, there we go.
There it is.
Oh,
There.
dang it.
Yeah,
It's
you
looking
can
good.
really see how, you know, even though it's like, oh my goodness, you're covering it all in. Well, that's really what it looks, you know, he's more darker right there. So
Yeah.
now that you did that, you can start lightening up. So add in more of that fur. And then what I would actually suggest is using the brush that we used originally,
Uh-huh.
for the background for that fur, and just kind of apply it. I know I have another canvas. Hold on 1 second. I'll give you some examples.
Fucking those were busy.
No.
So when you add in the fur, first of all, you know, we don't want it super white. So I'm gonna see how I'm like adding in whatever color you're gonna do. I just like to tap it in so it's, you know, not too mixed of a color, but when you add on that fur, especially with that mouth, the muzzle and everything, just apply it on kind of like this.
Okay.
Put way more paint on there. I didn't add enough paint. But that way you can really kind of see how fluffy it is. And if you look, I'm kind of like moving my brush stroke in different directions.
Yeah.
And whenever you're trying to add the very end of the fur, and this will be helpful for you too, Andrew, with the cat's fur, if you want to add it, you're just going to have brush strokes where you kind of, so this is that part of the left side of the face or looking at it, but I'm going to just flick my brush out like that.
Okay.
See how I'm like starting right here, normal pressure, and then as you drag off, you're just going to kind of lift. And so I want you to kind of build that shape for the muzzle that way. And just like add a brush stroke and move on. Keep, you know, you don't want to do the same one because you just flatten it out. We want it to be nice and fluffy. So just really tap and move around so you have different brush strokes everywhere.
Okay.
Because it is just kind of like a mess of fur. That's what makes it look so cool. And then the same thing with the cat, you'll just kind of like bring it out like that. but the whiskers will be different. So I'll show you the whiskers when we're ready.
And then that's it.
All right, I'm gonna use the restroom, so I'll be right back.
Okay.
She comes back.
It's been surprisingly good. By now, he'd be whining. What?
This one.
So we have a gray. Huh?
What did you say with it? Oh, were you like making your?
Yeah. Well, I guess I probably should because I was mixing the background color into it. So. Oh. Yeah, actually. Okay, just try to finish this color before it brings out on the block.
Sweet. Oh, shit. That's
Mm.
Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, but I didn't pick it up to sleep in the grass and walk on the concrete.
Very nice.
But you
Go for it.
And then
Okay.
I need a nap. I'm probably restless. It's fine.
Good enough. I'm gonna see if he settles down again once I sit down.
Bless you.
Thank you. Like you didn't get to the snooze button or the mute button quick enough.
Okay, boy.
it's you.
What do you think? I'll send you another progress one.
Perfect. Yeah, I was just gonna ask if you guys.
I'm gonna start doing kind of brighter highlights, but
Awesome.
I haven't gotten to the little chin fur yet. But
Cool. When I hear it come in, I'll go ahead and check.
how long do these classes usually last? We don't want to keep you
I
too
know,
long or
I feel
anything.
bad.
Well, so you guys, we started at 7, so 2.5 hours.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you guys have like another 15, 20 minutes. And let me pull this up. I haven't gotten it quite yet.
Yeah, I just sent it now.
Okay, cool.
I should probably do the fur thing because that's where I'm going to help with that.
A lot of times when I go to send a progress picture, I'll be like, oh, wait, that's what there's something
know.
weird about sending it.
You fix that, yeah.
Ooh, okay, that's looking good. A lot more dimension. Those eyes look way better. That has so much emotion. And that fur on the side looks awesome.
Thank you.
I love that.
All the highlights, the
Nice.
kind of the white, I guess. -ish.
Yeah, but I like that it's not, too white. Because if it any spot that is, like your eye. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was. Let me share this.
Oh.
So you can see what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's pretty subtle. So like if you added a bright white spot right here, your eye would just immediately go there. So it's a really good subtlety, I'd say. But yeah, I'd add in before you do the tongue, since it's such a bright color, I would add your fur, which I would just do like a gray, something like this, maybe a little bit lighter, so it does look different.
Okay.
And then you could always add, so the way you added this fur right here, do your base color right here, and then add that with the same application that you did for that, for those white highlights on top.
All right.
But yeah, it's looking awesome. It looks very fierce. What was the cat's name?
Sophie.
Sophie Sue.
Sophie. Oh, that's cute.
I'm gonna send you an update as well.
Cool.
Okay, one second.
Oh, that's so cute. You did such a good job with the like little muzzle. That is amazing. I love it.
Good.
Oh, it's so cool seeing the progress. So I'll pull up the other thing just so we can see anything.
Yeah.
So cute.
Cool.
So yeah, you got this. Oh, the eyebrow looks so good.
Cool.
They're not aligned, which is perfect.
Yeah.
I love that.
Character.
So I'd say bring in maybe see the difference in shapes right here.
Okay.
So maybe kind of that's just something that you could do that way, because that really helps it look like there's 2 legs right there.
Uh-huh.
So like this looks great. And you can even maybe drag some more up into there like it's there. But I would just close in this shape right here.
Cool.
And then maybe a little tiny gray mark right here to indicate the mouth.
Okay.
And then those 2 little eyes. And then maybe just some highlight up here just to show that like light reflecting. But it's looking amazing.
Yay.
And then, yeah, also, because I could tell you have a lot of precision, which is probably just part of your personality. But with this wild hair,
Yeah.
I would use the flat brush, the shorter flat brush I gave you. And let me show you something. But by still using some precision, which is what I would do is make sure your brush is like wet. So when you use that black, I'm going to use brown. Oh, here, let me. Can you see my palette?
It's kind of small because the
Oh,
screen share.
I'll pin it.
Oh, can you pin it?
Yeah, I can pin video.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
So make sure, like, I kind of dipped the brush in. So I kind of cheated with that rule, but that way the brush is wet, but then kind of like really make sure that I'm kind of going back and forth to make sure that paint's nice and can slide around. Because if it's kind of thick, it doesn't do that as well. So what I would do is, especially around the perimeter of that head, look at the filtered one I did, and like some of them, and I'm holding the brush basically like perpendicular to the canvas. I'm not like angling it or anything like that.
Okay.
So that way you can just kind of drag up. But I would do that on some of the parts where it has like the fur.
Yeah.
So press hard and then drag up as you're releasing. But I do that on some certain spots of the, just to
Okay.
give it some
Yeah.
messiness, because I think that looks so cute on.
Yeah. It's definitely scruffy. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And one thing's for sure is, you know, like tomorrow when you see it, or when you just have like, you know, time away from your painting, you'll kind of see like, ooh, I could do that, or I could do this. And I really made sure how are you guys doing on paint?
We're doing great.
Good.
Good. So you should have enough to like even maybe go back and like have another session with it, or play with whatever. But yeah, because I know for me, I never just finish a painting and don't tweak it later, you know, like, because you just see it differently. You're not focused on areas that maybe you think look really bad that the next day sometimes look the best. It's kind of like when you like go to bed like angry at someone, you wake up and you're like, oh, hi, you know, it's like,
oh, it's not so bad.
Right? I feel that way about paintings all the time. So, but yeah, it's also like, ooh, I totally can add this to it. So definitely go back to it and look at your reference and see, you know, but yeah, you guys could have a total other session with this. And this is recorded, so I'll send it to you guys too, in case you want to see any other instruction. I mean, you could really I'm going to edit it down to where you can kind of like view along with it without it being, you know, too much of our conversation.
Nice, yeah.
But yeah, so you guys can kind of go back to that if you want.
Awesome.
I do that with the classes I take, and I'm always like, oh, I totally missed her saying that. You know. When you're adding the fur to like the edges, you can also get the background apply some paint again. Like right now, I'm kind of doing that right here because I'm working on the top of his head. So that way I can kind of drag it in. And then if I add like my highlight, it blends a little nicer and you have like a prettier edge. You can also, it might be a little bit harder with your guys' since your pets are dark, but you can outline it in white or black, or you can get creative if you want. If you feel like it's missing something, sometimes outlining it can help.
Yeah.
I think that's what I did to the drawing portion of the digital one on the pup. I added a little white perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna send you another update. I did the little chart part.
Oh my gosh, that looks so good. I just took a little bit of black.
Okay, did I send it to myself?
Yeah.
I think I sent it to you. I'm not 100% sure. Let me see. Let me check my sent.
It looks really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, this, you really kind of like captured a really cool shape with the face. But yeah, when you it looks like you haven't done the tongue yet, right?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should do it. I mean, I would think like a very light pink, maybe. I don't know if it would stand out too much, but, you know.
So that's what I was gonna say. I would mute it a little bit with your background colors so that it's still kind of, you know, has harmony. But so in other words, use that as your white instead of just adding white to it. Use that color as your white, your background, and then you can keep darkening it. But yeah, you don't want it too saturated.
Oh, I would use the tongue color as the white.
Of the, what's that?
I'm sorry, I missed the like using the what as the white. I'm sorry.
So your background color,
Yeah.
whatever you're using for that, because it looks like you created a really pretty color.
The green, yeah.
Just use some of that with that instead of just using just white for that tongue color.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, and that will look really cool. And then if you, one other thing you could do is add some highlight onto like the eye.
Oh yeah.
Even though you can't see it too much with cats, but you can a little bit. So
like the tiniest amount, I guess.
yeah. And so what I usually do for that is I'll show you guys.
Okay.
Zoom in. But okay, so I'll get my, that's the smallest brush that I gave you. Wash that off. And then, now for this, I will use white just because we want it to be kind of like its ultimate little pop.
Yeah.
So it's like a treat. So what I'll do is use this is a little flatter than, I think I gave you guys a really sharp one, but use the very tip of it. And the harder you press, like we were talking about before, you know, the bigger of a mark you're going to get. Whereas if you just barely get that very, you know, corner part of the brush and barely touch it.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's maybe a little bit too much. Another thing you could do is dip the end of the brush. So the end of the brush is right in like that. And so at the very end of it, you're going to get this like, almost like a little Hershey kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can, and if you look, I'm kind of like balancing my arm, or if you're on your table, it's probably easier. But then I'll just like barely touch it.
So just like a little dot.
Tiny.
Yep, a little dot.
Okay. Okay.
And what's cool about that is it'll lead the eye to the pup's eye.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want, you could tap it once if it's like too, you know, stark. I kind of did that, so that way it's not too crazy. Maybe yeah, just play around with it really.
Okay.
Because again, the worst thing you could do is just put some black back over it and try it again.
Sure. That's true. Okay, I just sent you another one.
Cool.
Terrific.
Okay, here we go. Cute. Yeah, that's looking great. I mean, you're continuing to kind of like mold it around. So, oh, the mouth is adorable. And yeah, and I think once you add the little dots on the eyes, that's going to look really cool too. And then the more you work on it, and whether that be, you know, later this evening or the next time, but you can still really reference that other one and add more. Oh, I keep forgetting to reshare my screen. But yeah, so that way, oh, I can see that you're starting to do that actually. You added more of those highlights over there.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can keep doing it gradually, but you can keep kind of bringing those out. And the more you add it, the more it's just going to slowly like just take form and shape, you know, because he's a cylinder, you know, if you're going to think about light hitting it. So continue with those highlights, keep them broken apart. You know, you don't necessarily want like, which I don't see on yours, but you don't necessarily want like a perfect outline unless you're going to have that purposeful. But yeah, it looks really good.
Cool.
And then, yeah, even if you like the next time, if you play with it or anything, you can add a little bit more color to your whites. If you're, you know, because what you have right now, I know you said before you like more of that, like the more natural, realistic tones. But I mean, you could do something unrealistic if you want to add that pop of white. And then again, if you don't like it, you can just put some more white back over it, a little thicker. But yeah, it's looking great.
Cool. Thank you. I'm scared to do his little eyeballs. But you're right, I can just paint over it.
Yeah.
After chilling a little.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with the artist John Singer Sargent. But he's a portrait artist from the 1800s, and he's he's like kind of one of the godfathers of painting. Really, he's brilliant. But his whole thing was if he'd be working on a portrait, and if he didn't like the eye, he would just redo it. He'd cover it all up, or sometimes just start his painting over.
Oh my God.
You know, that seems kind of crazy because you put all that like time into it. The next time he did it, he could do it so much better.
That's
You know? So when I read that, I'm like, that is so interesting. And I've done more of that. I feel like in the past, I'm like, oh, I would never just start a painting over. That's so silly. But it's like, well, then next time you have all the practice for everything you just did.
Yeah.
So same with his little eye.
Shrink that one a little.
And yeah, if you guys do continue to work on it, feel free to email me. I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Feedback or
just gonna do it.
Eh.
Did you do it?
A little eyeball.
The littlest dollop. Yeah.
It's the curls.
I think you put them where the eyebrows were.
What? Is that bad or is that
No,
good?
it's just it's just funny because he has like no eyeballs.
I
Just
know.
the little glint.
That's how he is.
I know. This is how he is. It's just funny.
Is that good laugh or bad laugh, buddy?
It's good.
Let me check.
Yeah, and you can if just that if the little dots, you know, kind of seems like weird or off to you, you could add that little bit of that underline or the under the lower lid, but
Yeah.
you want it almost black. You want to basically be kind of like your highlights, Andrew, but maybe make them almost a little that lower eyelid a little bit darker than that, Sarah, if you followed all of that. But that would be a perfect subtlety that that might make that eye read a little bit better. And also maybe look at it a little further away. Because it's the same thing with the photo. If you look further back, you can kind of see the whole picture. So it's a lot easier to be like, oh, hey, that's exactly where that needs to be. Or a lot of times it's like, oh, wait, that looks really good. And that's how you'll see it, if it's like hanging up, you don't really see it this close.
Sure. Okay. I'm gonna send it to you.
Cool. Okay, just got it. Oh, that's cute. Yes, I like that. Super cute. Those little eyes. Yeah. And whenever you are ready to sign your painting, which I feel like every time I sign it, I'm never actually really done, but
Right. That's true.
like, oh, wait. But use that little itty brush, or you can use like a marker or pen.
Yeah, I'll probably use a pen.
That's a good
I
idea.
suck at signing with the
Paintbrush.
The messier the signature, though, the more of an artiste you look like.
That's a good point.
The more bad. Almost done. Just gotta do some shading. My tongue, man.
And Sarah, if you want, you could also do another layer of your background, because I think that would also kind of like really make the pup stand out a lot. I did another coat on mine too, because as it dries, you can start to see the more of that texture and all of that. And
I'm sure I think I'll do that.
Sorry to get like a shade. Okay. I think that's fine. All right, sending you the should hopefully be the last update. Fingers crossed.
painting never feels fully finished,
Right?
Yeah, I know.
That's true.
or anything really, right? You could like.
I muted it a lot, and I did add like some of the green and whatnot. So hopefully it's good.
Still floating in the interweb.
Yeah, not very well. I had a little like pen Sharpie, like thin one. It's still not seen.
Still floating somewhere.
Did you send it to yourself?
No, there we go. It should send now. For some reason, I pressed it and it didn't go.
That's okay. I do that all the time.
Or the worst is when you say attached is blah 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 and you forget the
You
attachment.
forgot to
Oh, like when I told Sarah, here's your link, and she's like, where's the link? I'm like, well, some things never change. I guess I'm just always going to be bad at that stuff. Oh yeah, that looks good. That's like a perfect shade. Perfect. Yeah. And the fur underneath looks really cute too.
Sweet.
Love it. Good job, guys.
Yay. Thank you.
And then, yeah, like I said, your brushes, they're yours to keep because they came with the kit. Just make sure you clean them all off, because if you don't clean them off, they're donezo. If they, but again, the best way to wash them is just kind of like pressing at the bottom of your cup and stirring around and really getting them out. But yeah, and again, if you guys like end up working on it again, I'll send you the video in the next like couple days.
Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, feel free to do that, watch it again. And but yeah, thanks so much for painting with me, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, you have any other questions before we end our class?
Nope, I don't think
I
so.
don't think so. No, I think we're good.
Well, happy painting if you guys continue. And again, do not hesitate to email me. You will not be bothering me in the slightest bit. I love being able to help and also see what else you guys work on. So
Yeah,
thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you so much.
Happy Saturday. You guys have a great day.
Yeah, you
Thanks,
too.
you too.